Welcome to the Hoke Industrial Forklift Operator Safety Training. Please pay close attention, as some of Hoke Industrial's training and standards may be stronger than those set forth by OSHA or other companies. There will be testing for this training. Testing will be both a quiz and a practical, hands-on test. So, let us get started. These are the 10 objectives that we will be going over today in this training. Legislation, introduction to the forklift, pre-use checks, safe practice, loads and travel, load and gravity center, parking, pedestrians or walkways, refueling, and in conclusion.
Let us read through some of these legislations to better understand how and why these rules came about. The Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act 1974, HSWA, sets out the employer's duty to provide safe plant and equipment, safe premises, and safe coworkers, and to ensure the safety of others not employed by them. The Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations, 1999, MHSWR, set requirements to assess the hazards and risks that worker may be exposed to, and to ensure that they are adequately trained and informed as to any risks to their health and safety. Under the Workplace, Health, Safety, and Welfare Regulations, 1992, employers must provide a safe workplace by considering access ways, lighting, ventilation, and general space requirements. It is also important that particular requirements relevant to the use of forklift trucks are taken into consideration. For example, concerning the condition of floors and traffic routes, notably that they are even, adequately drained, and strong enough to drive a fully laden forklift over them. Also, there is a need to organize all traffic routes in the workplace, particularly the need to protect pedestrians from the forklift trucks when in use.
Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations, 1998, PUWER. Ensure that all work equipment is suitable for the purpose intended and that it is adequately maintained and inspected. The following PUWER regulations are relevant to forklifts. Regulation 4. Giving a requirement to ensure the suitability of the forklift for the purpose for which it is intended to be used. Regulation 5 requires that the forklift is kept adequately maintained to prevent risks to health and safety. Regulations 8 and 9, expanding on the requirements under the HSWA for adequate instruction, information, and training for all people having a connection with the use and operation of forklifts. For example, the operators, supervisors, managers, and maintenance operatives. Regulation 25, containing the duty to ensure the safety of people carried on the forklift. Regulation 26 requires certain types of forklifts to be fitted with the means to prevent them from rolling over and causing injury to the driver. Regulation 27 covers the requirement to reduce the risk of those forklifts not covered in Regulation 26 from overturning. Regulation 28 covers the general requirements to prevent self-propelled work equipment, such as a forklift, from causing a risk to the safety of people while it is in motion. A forklift is work equipment for lifting and lowering loads and must comply with the requirements set out in the Lifting Operations and Lifting Equipment Regulations, 1998, LOLER. Although all the regulations are relevant to the use of forklifts, the most significant are the following. As stipulated by LOLER, the need to ensure that the forklift is adequately strong and sufficiently stable to lift and, by implication, carry the load. The need to ensure the safety of the equipment used to lift people, ensuring that a proprietary cage which was designed and made for the purpose is used. The duty to properly organize lifting operations. The person in control of each lift, such as a slinger or the operator of the forklift, should have sufficient competence and knowledge of the loads, local conditions, and safe systems of work to ensure safe compliance with the general procedures laid down by the organization in response to the risk assessment. The requirement for a thorough examination at intervals of not more than 12 months for equipment that lifts a load, not more than 6 months for equipment used to lift people, that is, using a forklift cage, or if it is a lifting accessory, for example, the chains, the forks, and the mast. So, who needs forklift training? Anyone who will be operating a forklift of any kind. In a moment, we will go over the different types of forklifts and some examples. Why is training necessary? Forklifts pose many hazards. Approximately 100 deaths and 38,000 injuries occur per year. The most common accidents are forklift overturns, 22%, worker on foot struck by forklift, 20%, victim crushed by forklift, 16%, fall from a forklift, 9%. Let us take a look at some of the differences between driving your car and driving a forklift. Your car weighs between 2,000 and 6,000 pounds, depending on the make and model. Your car uses the front wheels to steer and has a low center of gravity that helps keep traction in turns and helps with fuel mileage. Your visibility is excellent, with all of the windows and mirrors that are provided. A forklift can range from 4,000 to 40,000 pounds, depending on the class and model. Then add the load that you are lifting, and that becomes extreme. The steering on a forklift is done with the rear wheels. That, combined with the short wheelbase, gives the forklift a very short turning radius. It also has a very high center of gravity that makes it unstable when turning at higher speeds or on uneven ground. Low visibility is also a factor. Think about being behind an 18-wheeler at a red light. You are not able to see the light when it turns green, and you cannot see any pedestrians that may be crossing the road. That's what it's like on a forklift with a load on the forks. These are some examples of the different classes of forklifts. Classes 4, 5, and 7 are typically what you will see on our job sites. Take note that there are a lot of different types of forklifts, and each one has a specific type of job it is designed for. Make sure you are choosing the right equipment for the task you are performing. You would not try to use a pallet jack to lift an 8,000-pound crate, nor would you use a Class 7 to get in between aisles inside a warehouse. Now we'll look at the basic features and characteristics of a forklift. This illustration shows the basic features of a typical forklift. Most forklifts have certain features in common. You need to know what these features are and how to use them properly and safely. Take a moment or two to study this illustration and identify the features of a typical forklift. Note that this illustration represents a typical forklift. However, features may vary depending on the manufacturer and model. Such as the model shown has only one rear wheel for steering and is electric powered. This is the other common forklift you will see on our job sites. These are known as a telehandler or extend-a-boom forklift. They are a combination of a forklift and a crane. They have the hazards associated with both. Examples are overhead power lines, a larger footprint for clearance issues, and less visibility around you. The controls function differently from a regular forklift. Because of the telescoping boom associated with this equipment, you must be able to read and understand a load chart so you can remain within safe operating limits. By not following the load chart, you could cause the forklift to transform into a catapult. All forklifts should have a manufacturer's ID plate. This should provide you with model number, max load weight, max lift height, load center, serial number, manufacturer information. All attachments are used with the lift. If this plate is not on the forklift or is not legible, the forklift must be taken out of service. A pre-use or daily inspection must be done and documented. Check the following areas for defects: rated capacity plate, fork arms, carriage plate, mast rollers or slides, lift chains, lift chain pulleys, hydraulics, hydraulic controls, wheels, tires, driving and braking, steering. If any of these are found to require repair, take the forklift out of service by tagging it as out of service and advise your supervisor. These are some examples of things not to do on or with a forklift. No riders are allowed on the forklift, just the operator. The forklift is not to be used as a work platform. Do not overload the forklift. Always drive backward when the load is too large to see around or over. Safe practices include: always perform an all-around check of the area before operating. Always do a pre-inspection of the equipment. Always look in the direction of travel. Never turn with the forks raised over 36 inches. Never leave a supported load unattended. Do not dismount unnecessarily. Do not operate in an unsafe manner. Do not use for any purpose other than lifting and moving materials. More safety rules for traveling in a forklift include: avoid driving over loose objects or holes. Doing this could cause a tip-over. Never carry passengers. They don't have a seat or a seatbelt and could get killed in an accident. Always remember that pedestrians have the right of way. Stay a safe distance from the edges of ramps and loading docks. Don't eat or drink or use a cell phone while operating a forklift. These create an unsafe distraction, and never engage in horseplay on or around a forklift. Keep body and limbs inside the roll cage. Keep forks low when traveling, about 12 inches off the floor. Sound the horn when at an intersection or blind corner. Don't speed. Check clearance. Please be sure to wear your seatbelt at all times. Avoid loose objects or holes. Pedestrians have the right of way. Keep a safe distance from the edge of ramps or docks. When a forklift is tipping, remember that there is a point where there is no saving it, and you need to be prepared for what comes next. These things will prevent major injury and most likely save your life. You must be wearing a seatbelt. Hold on tightly to the steering wheel with both hands. Keep hands and arms inside the caged area. Plant feet flat on the floor and press down. Lean in the opposite direction. These areas will be referenced in a moment. Take a moment to review these locations so you will better understand the following instructions on how to load, travel, and unload the forklift. Picking up a load. Approach the load straight on with the forks in the travel position. Stop when the fork tips are approximately 6 inches away from the load. Level forks and drive slowly forward until the load kisses the heel of the forks. Lift the load high enough for the floor conditions. Slowly tilt the mast back to stabilize the load. Check the load center. This is measured from the front face of the fork arms to the center of gravity of the load. Perform an all-around check before moving. Handling loads. Check the capacity to be sure the forklift can handle the load. Check the load for weight and stability. Lift the load 1 to 2 inches to test the stability of the rear wheels and the forklift. If the forklift struggles, set the load down and, if possible, break the load into smaller, more manageable loads. When reading the weight on labels, net weight equals the product only. Gross weight equals the product, pallet, and packaging. This process should be with the mast vertical and on level ground. Traveling. Travel with the load tilted slightly back for stability. Travel with the load at the proper height, 4 to 6 inches at fork tips, 2 to 4 inches at heels. Drive in a controlled manner, slowly. Drive in reverse if you cannot see over the load. Never approach personnel in front of fixed objects. Setting down the load. Drive to the location, square up to the load area, and stop about 6 inches away. Level the forks and slowly drive forward. Lower the load. Perform an all-around check and back straight out until the forks clear the load by about 6 inches. Return to travel position. Always cross railroad tracks at an angle to prevent a sudden jolt to the lift and the load that could make them unstable. This shows some examples of reasons or causes for the forklift to become unstable. When something causes the center of gravity to move too far forward, then gravity and leverage take over and will cause the forklift to fall forward or to the side. This can happen due to the load being too heavy or bulky, uneven ground, the load being lifted too high, etc. Think about lifting a box off the floor with your hands. You want to use your legs to do the lifting, not your back. When you use your back, it forces you to lean forward and lose your center of balance. When you use your legs to lift, it allows you to lift straight up and keep your balance. If the load is heavy, then once you get it to a comfortable height, you naturally lean back before traveling to keep it stable. The same principles apply to a forklift. The truck's maximum carrying capacity will be reduced when the load center is increased. The fulcrum, pivot point. The front wheels of the forklift are the fulcrum point. The rear of the forklift has counterweights to help offset the weight of the load. An unloaded forklift is less stable. All the weight is in the rear. A loaded forklift is more stable. When the forks are loaded, the weight of the forklift and load is more evenly balanced. When the load outweighs the counterweight, the forklift can tip forward when the load is raised. When driving on a slope, always keep the heavy end uphill. If the forklift is loaded, heavier or less stable in front, drive forward up the incline with the load. Drive in reverse, coming down the incline with the load pointed up the incline. If the forklift is not loaded, heavier in the rear, drive forward down the ramp. Drive in reverse going up the ramp. This improves stability, traction, and adhesion. Always look at the driving conditions. Not all forklifts are made for outdoor use or rough surfaces. As they say, use the right tool for the job. When the forklift is parked or unattended, the fork tips should always be on the ground. Turn off the engine, set the parking brake, look around, and make sure that where you have parked is not blocking any exits, signs, emergency equipment, doorways, or walkways. Pedestrians always have the right of way. Slow down at intersections. Look all around before reversing. 2 short blasts on the horn when coming around blind corners and at blind intersections. Check traffic mirrors at intersections if they are present in the workplace. Never let anyone travel, walk under the forks. Always assume that there is someone right around the corner. Use lights and the horn to make your presence known. Come to a stop at blind corners and intersections. Sound your horn, then proceed slowly when all is clear. When you are refueling or changing the propane tank, there is no smoking. Always wear safety glasses and/or a face shield. Place the forks on the ground and turn off the engine. Shut off the cylinder valve before turning off the forklift to reduce pressure in the fuel line. Liquid propane is approximately -40 degrees. Wear heavy-duty rubber gloves. Make sure the pressure relief valve points straight up when replacing the tank. In conclusion, forklifts are more hazardous than most people usually perceive them to be. Pre-use checks must be performed before each day or shift. It is important to understand how the load will affect the stability of the forklift. The operator must always be on the lookout for hazards and pedestrians. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this informative. There is a written exam following this training video. Once the written exam is completed and graded, you will be contacted by a training officer to schedule your practical evaluation, driving test. Please click the link below to take you to the written exam.